All right, it's day 4 of our Martin Luther King Jr. reading. Today we are reading a little bit of chapter 4. It's a pretty long chapter, so I'm gonna stop about halfway through. It is called Riding the Bus. So remember, we are reading each day, reading just a little bit of who was Martin Luther King Jr. And also shout out to Scholastic. Thank you for letting me read this book online. So, chapter 4. Martin started his job as the pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church on September 1st, 1954. In his sermons, he persuaded church members to register to vote. Voting was one way to change unjust laws. He also encouraged them to join the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. The NAACP is one of the oldest civil rights groups in the United States. It was formed on February 12, 1909. Its purpose is to help minorities get equal and fair treatment when they look for a job, buy a home, or apply to school. These are just a few examples of civil rights. After living in Montgomery for about a year, Coretta gave birth to a little girl named Yolanda Destiny Martin, called her Yoki for short. Now the Kings were a family. So here's a picture of their cute little family. Only 2 weeks after Yolanda was born, something happened that changed U.S. history forever. On December 1st, 1955, a 42-year-old black woman named Rosa Parks got on a bus in Montgomery. Instead of going to the back of the bus, she sat down in a seat at the front. The bus driver told her to move, but Rosa Parks refused, and she was arrested. Black leaders, including Martin Luther King Jr., met to discuss Rosa Parks' arrest. Martin and others came up with a plan. They would not ride the city buses to school or to work. This kind of protest is called a boycott. If the blacks of Montgomery stopped riding the buses, then the bus company would lose money. Perhaps then the government would change the laws. Monday, December 5th, 1955, was the day the boycott began. Since Monday was the start of a new school and work week, people would have to take cabs or find rides in cars. Some would even have to walk. But Martin believed the boycott would send a strong message. If black people couldn't sit wherever they wanted, they would refuse to take the bus. On Monday morning, Coretta and Martin woke up early. They peeked out the window to look outside at the bus stop. A bus pulled up. It was empty. Martin jumped into his car and drove around the city. Almost all the black people he saw were riding in cars or walking. Later, he learned some had to walk more than 10 miles to get where they were going. So then they included a picture of an empty bus. So I'm going to stop there for the actual chapter, but I'm going to go back because there was a little part about Rosa Parks. So I'm going to read these 2 pages. Rosa Parks was born in Tuscany, Alabama on February 4th, 1913. After Rosa Parks' parents separated, she and her mother moved to the farm where Rosa's grandparents lived. Rosa was homeschooled until she was 11. She began high school, but she had to drop out to take care of her sick grandmother. It wasn't until after she was married that she finished high school. In 1943, Rosa had become active in the civil rights movement. She joined her local NAACP chapter in the Voters League. So that was what we talked about just a second ago. Rosa worked as a seamstress at a department store. She rode the public bus to and from work. After her arrest on December 1st, 1955, she spent the night in jail. Some people said that Rosa did not give up her seat because she was tired. Rosa said that they were right. She was tired of giving in. Almost 100 years later, the Civil War had ended and slavery was abolished. Black people were no longer slaves, but in many places, real changes did not come until the 1950s and 1960s, when more black people began demanding their rights. Many people think that Rosa Parks' protest, that one little act, was the start of the modern civil rights movement. All right, so what I want you to write down in your notebook for today's response is, what is one thing from this chapter that has inspired you so far? Something that either Rosa Parks did, that Martin Luther King Jr. did, or maybe even just the other black people living in Montgomery, Alabama. What is something brave, something inspiring that they have done? All right, and I'll see you guys Monday.